Is The Handmaid's Tale a prediction? That is the third question I'm asked increasingly, as forces within American society seize power and enact decrees that embody what they were saying they wanted to do even back when I was writing this novel. No, it isn't a prediction, because predicting the future isn't really possible. There are too many variables and unforeseen possibilities. Let's say it's an anti-prediction. If this future can be described in detail, maybe it won't happen, but such wishful thinking cannot be depended on either. From the introduction of Margaret Atwood's A Handmaid's Tale. I am reading this right now, and that part reminded me specifically about why I wrote The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. She wrote it after she was put on this restrictive place and she wasn't allowed to write or act or do anything that might stimulate her brain as a way to deal with depression, specifically postpartum depression. They called her hysteric and they wrote this, and it is one of my favorite stories of all time. It speaks to me in a way that talks about mental health in a way that I think few have ever grasped, at least for my own mental health, and then also brings it to horrifying reality as a great horror story. She was asked so many times, like, are you trying to create madness, especially in a time when purity and purity of women's thoughts was so thought, and she was like, no, I'm writing this not to create badness, but to prevent it. If I can write about it, I can hopefully stop it. And actually, the doctor who did it to her, she sent the letter to him. It's like 13, 14 pages, or maybe 30 pages. I don't know. It's not a long story. And he never publicly said it, but he did actually stop doing the rest cure, which was just like the confinement of women. And it's interestingly how politically strong she is about the past and how not political she is about the present. Like, she's very play at all odds about the present, which is interesting. I don't know if that's because she was a youth when those politics meant, or if it's a smart thing to not say your opinion on a government that hasn't actually fully did something yet. I'm not feeling very well, but I am feeling very like emotional and very like in the mood to read something. So after wanting to read this book for years, I finally picked it up and I'm going to read it. I just finished reading Luster by Raven Leilani, and this was such a strong book that spoke so evidently to women's issues and abuse and to race in America. It made me feel heard adjacently. I can relate to what it feels like to have the trauma that's thread into women's lives, and this made me want to finish this. I know the story, I know everything that happens, and even in her talking about it, I was like, it's interesting to hear her say the words that I've researched so often. You can follow me along in reading A Handmaid's Tale. We slept in what had once been the gymnasium. The floor was of varnished wood with stripes and circles painted on it for the games that were formerly played there. The hoops of the basketball nets were still in place, though the nets were gone. There was an old sex in the room, the loneliness and expectation of something without a shape or name. I remember that yearning for something that was always about to happen and was never the same as the hands that were on us then and there. We yearned for the future. How did we learn it? The talent for the insatiability. It was in the air, and it was still in the air, an afterthought as we tried to sleep in the army cots that had been set up in rows with spaces between us so we could not talk. Aunt Sarah and Aunt Elizabeth patrolled. They were electric cattle prods, slung on thongs from the leather belts. No guns, though. Even they could not be trusted with guns. Guns for the guards, especially picked from the angels. The guards weren't allowed inside the building except when called, and we weren't allowed outside. We learned to whisper almost without sound. In the semi-darkness, we could stretch out our arms when the aunts weren't looking and touch each other's hands across space. We learned to lip read, our heads flat on beds, turned sideways, watching each other's mouths. In this way, we exchanged names from bed to bed. Alma, Janine, Dolores, Moira, June. Her writing is so visceral and so beautiful. That is just some quotes from the very first chapter. It's not even like a full chapter, and it's so beautiful, and it sets you into the world so well and so gorgeously, and you feel immersed, and you don't even know anything other than these vague references to authority and these vague references to systems and things that were gone. And one of the notes I wrote is, what does society look when it's lost with pictures? And yeah, I really love her writing. I've read a few of her books before, so I know her writing is beautiful, but I understand why this is her masterpiece.